Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today's video is pretty much me sharing my thoughts on something that's been going on between the space of the last state of the game and today or in the next few days. And this is something that is pertaining to the Division 2's community in terms of the developers and state of the game and how they've been relating to us in terms of development or in terms of making changes and things that are going to make the Division 2 better. Now, somebody placed a comment on my video and said, that they have this strange feeling that right now the ETF is giving a lot of strong feedback and they believe that the developers are probably going to be taking a lot of these things into consideration, and we're about to see some major changes that will take the game to a different level. And that the silence, is pretty much, in his opinion, what he thinks is evidence for the developers to be making some really giant strides. And for some of you, you may say, oh, I call bull on that statement. And, that's pretty much justifiable. But for those of us who've been in the division for a long time, this kind of silence is in a strange way reassuring. Because if you think about it, there have been seasons, and I'm talking of the Division 1's development life cycle all the way through today. To me, I don't see both games as quite as different in the development cycle. I'm of the strong opinion that they're the same game, developed on the same engine. It's a Snowdrop engine. Somebody may have mentioned Snowdrop 2.0, but it doesn't say 2.0 when you fire up your game. It just says Snowdrop. So that is that's my opinion anyways, that they're pretty much the same game. One of them reskinned and then delivered to us in a different package and a few things stripped out. That's how I see it. But if you think about the times in the development cycle from the first Division 1 game when the developers went silent, what you're going to notice is usually whenever they came back to the table, they brought with them something very tangible, and a lot of it were things that the community had been requesting. And so for a lot of Division veterans who are not mad at the game, some of us are mad at the game, and that's granted. I would say that is justified. But for those of us who are kind of thinking and saying, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes right now, there's a strange curiosity that makes me think in my mind, and I agree with, the audience member that commented and made this comment on this line of thinking. I somehow agreed with him after thinking about it. When I first read the comment, I was like, yeah, I don't know. But then as it started to linger in my mind, I started to say to myself, well, if we look back at some really huge patches like patch 1.4, look at some really, game-changing changes within the Division 1 where they dropped survival and underground. Those times were set after some periods of silence. Now, this silence that we have, strangely, is quite different because it seemed like the developers were continuing to, relate with the community. But I think they've gotten all the feedback that they need, and they're pretty much maybe at work doing something. Now, there's something else that we have to take into consideration, and this is something that a lot of the Division community so far, from reading my comment section, many of you say, what do you know about the community? I have a comment section, read it. You see that I'm saying exactly the same thing that I'm hearing you guys tell me. All right, away from that. Sometimes that's frustrating to answer when people tell me stuff like that. But a lot of the community members say things along the lines of, it seems like the developers somehow and sometimes create artificial problems in order for it to seem like there are solutions being put out there. It sounds a little conspiratorial in my opinion, but I'm not going to rule anything out because, man, we've been through this journey for, going on 4 years. And to be very honest, I can say, that to some extent, it seems like that might be the case, but maybe not, 100% the case. So maybe the problem creation may not even be intentional. Maybe something that they may have tried to create solutions in one place and then another problem popped up or arose. But nonetheless, if this is something that is being done to keep the life cycle of the game going, maybe intentional or unintentionally, I hope that in the end we're going to be able to get a good game at the end of the day, because to be very honest, whether they make a gaffe here or whether they make some really big mistakes here, at the end of the day, if they're willing to correct the mistakes, which is pretty much a huge portion of the community stance, that they're going to play the game in a year when the game is finally fixed or whatever it is that we say in the Division community, I'm just hoping that we can see a better game at the end of everything. I'm hoping that after this ETF, which I know it's a publicity, it's a PR measure, whatever it is, I hope they bring back the good hype news and we can actually see these things that we've been asking for, feedback that I know the developers already do have, because people have been posting on forums, Reddits, and YouTube videos. I'm hoping that we're able to see these changes that the community is asking for being implemented, and also seeing some really good new content being put on the table. And that's my stance on all of this. The silence, in my opinion, it can be worrisome, or it can be, well, maybe for some people, proof that, they were right, that the division was a waste of time. And there were people, and there are people who, hold this position. And I feel like, they have the right to hold that position, because we've seen a lot of things that are most likely not the best scenarios that we wanted to see. But I hope the developers can bounce back and make their game relevant again, because the relevancy of the game and the nature of the game being good means more game time and more enjoyment for the people who still own the game. Because if you own the game and you haven't sold it, or it's a digital copy, then it's still your game. It's just sitting there in your digital cyber library, consuming space, or right now just being space dust or whatever it is. I know none of you, or none of the people who still own the Division 2, would mind if the game actually became better, and if gear started dropping better rolls and they could min-max their gear, or if we had more content, or if we had better exotics, or if we had dynamic raids that didn't require for everybody to have a coordinated team, that everybody's marching like an army or something like that. These are things that the community will love. A PvP that people can participate in, with systems, map sizes, player quantities. So I'm guessing that a lot of people want to see these things, and nobody wants to just take their ball and go home and say, well, we'll call it quits, and say, oh, other games are coming out, which is true. But we would love to see the Division 2. Me personally, I'll speak for myself, and some people as well, we'll love to see the Division 2 do very well. Anyways, that's all I have for today. It's just something that I wanted to put out there for you guys to respond to. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I mean, you never say never. When we see what happens at the end, who knows? I may be right, or I may be proven as absolutely a nut job. So I'll see y'all soon. Thank you very much once again. Peace.